You're listening to Deliberate Living, a podcast that inspires, empowers, and encourages listeners to live life more authentically. My name is Holly Priestley, and I'm a full-time nomad and creator who has been living in my 1997 Ford van since January 1st of 2019. I travel the United States with my dog, learning how to live with more authenticity. I explore different ways people choose to ditch the prescribed life we've all been sold and live on their terms, finding freedom and happiness however they choose. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Deliberate Living Podcast. This is episode 85, and that has no bearing on anything, but the podcast has been on hold for about 2 months now, maybe, month and a half, as I have been reorganizing, revamping, and altogether just reconfiguring the podcast. And so this is a very exciting episode because it is the first episode after my revamp, and I have a lot of exciting things that I want to share with you guys this week about the show in general, my goals for it, what's changed, what hasn't changed, and what to expect in the future of the show for this next rendition of it. And the first thing that I want to share with you guys, and if you're looking at the video version of the podcast, you might have a guess at what this first thing is. But the next rendition of Deliberate Living Podcast will have not one host, yours truly, Holly Priestley, but two hosts. My good friend Nathan Beers is going to be co-hosting the show with me, and so welcome to Beers.
Thank you. I am so excited to be here. It's a lot of fun having conversations with you, and I'm looking forward to getting to have them more frequently, and the experience of having more of our conversations recorded for public consumption. So that's going to be a fun time.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm super excited to have you be part of the show, partially because I love talking to you just in general as a friend. And if you guys have been paying attention to the show since the beginning, Beers has been on 2 of my previous episodes, and I think are going to be a really good match for co-hosting because we have so many similarities, but also some really stark differences in the way we function in the world, in the way we think about things, in the way we live deliberately. And so I feel like that contrast is going to provide more depth and more perspective for the show, for the topics, for the interviews, and really just for everything. So, Beers, for the people who don't know who you are, who haven't seen your previous episodes yet, but who will be downloading them shortly, do you want to give a little background on who you are? Just a brief one. I know it's going to be hard for you. Just a brief background on who you are and how you've been living for the last few years and kind of come into your deliberate lifestyle now. Just a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit. So I'm Beers. That's Nathan Beers, but my last name is actually Beers, so that's what I go by. I was born in, so I spent the last 5+ years mostly as a nomad. That's where Holly and I crossed paths, and I was in a lot of different rigs and configurations over the years, and more recently have been semi-settling into a stationary home and getting to see what that is like again, trying to find social routines, which are much more challenging when you're on the move and the people you're around are constantly in flux. So I'm venturing into new territory, at least for this version of me. On previous episodes, I've talked about relationship anarchy and ethical non-monogamy, which is a big part of how I like to interact with people. It's a deliberate choice. And some of the ways that Holly and I definitely know that we differ is among other things, I tend to like things pretty unstructured. So these trying to schedule this is it's out of my comfort zone, but I'm really excited to be here. I also like the whole idea of social routines is pretty novel to me, that I'm even finding myself attracted to that and wanting that, because routine in my life has been something for a long time I have intentionally chosen to have as little of as possible. Whereas I love Holly has, like, she's done her episode talking about like her morning routine, which is glorious. But I wake up sometime between 4:30 and 10 o'clock every day.
Oh, my word.
And there's no rhyme or reason to what order or how I go about doing things when I start my day. But yeah, I love that we have so many different perspectives, and we get to challenge and encourage each other in our friendship in a lot of really powerful ways. And I'm excited that we're hopefully going to get to share some of that dynamic with all of you.
Yeah, I feel like we have a pretty good, like, just mutual respect for each other and an appreciation for our differences. And so hopefully we can bring that dynamic to the show and give a more well-rounded view of all the ways people can live deliberately. And so, my original goal for the Deliberate Living podcast was to share all of the ways people can live deliberately alternative lifestyles, whether that be sharing the stories of people doing so or deep diving into a specific topic or a question. And so that is not going to change. Our goals for the show moving forward are to continue to do that, and to continue to do that in a more holistic way, diving, even deeper into basically like everyday topics that you can deliberately incorporate into your life, and obviously still including some of those alternative lifestyles, some of the vanners, the backpackers, homesteaders, entrepreneurs, people who are living less conventional lives. But one thing that Beers and I both wanted to bring to the show moving forward is ways that anyone can live a more deliberate lifestyle, even if you love your Monday through Friday 9-to-5 salaried benefited cubicle job, even if that is fully fulfilling to you, and then you go home at the end of the day and you actually have a white picket fence and a golden retriever and 1.3 kids. There's so many ways you can still live deliberately no matter what your lifestyle looks like. It doesn't have to be living in a van. It doesn't have to be traveling all the time. It doesn't have to be working for yourself. It doesn't have to be any of those things. And so
just like small choices in your daily routine, like whether it's food choices or wardrobe, choosing to have like a capsule wardrobe, or how you choose to interact with your friendships or romantic relationships, your self-care, your routines, all of that. There's so much opportunity for making deliberate choices, especially deliberate choices outside of just the cookie cutter, this is the way things are done, that I'm fascinated by the thought that people put into so many of these choices. And it's going to be an exciting exploration.
Yeah, I completely agree. And so we're gonna tackle those in more depth between each other and in topical episodes, but we're also going to continue to have those interviews, and we can dive into those subjects with others as well. And so there are a number of things that are going to stay the same. Like I said, the goals of the podcast are going to stay the same, providing the inspiration, education, empowerment around living your own authentic and deliberate lifestyle. There is no single way to live. There is no single way to exist. There's no single way to eat or to travel or to be friends or to love or any of that nonsense. So we're going to go into those. We will be producing weekly episodes again. So this is the first one. Next week there will be another one, and then another one, and then another one. I really enjoy producing weekly episodes, and that's what I enjoy from podcasts. I don't necessarily subscribe to podcasts that have less than weekly episodes. This might be just a personal choice, but there's going to be plenty for y'all to listen to, and there already is 84 other episodes if you need to get caught up for some reason. A long time. Yeah, and the show will continue to be produced in audio and video format, and so because a few things are staying the same. Of course, a few things are changing. That was part of the whole revamp and reconfiguration time. The biggest change, of course, is going to be that we have twice the hosting power. And I'm pretty stoked.
By our powers combined, we are
Deliberate Living.
Captain Deliberate Living. I don't know. Batteries not included.
Captain and pilot, I think, because we're both important, and we deserve both of those titles. Yeah. Do you want to be the captain or the pilot? Captain Beers, Pilot Beers. Captain Priestley, Pilot Priestley.
What is the difference? I don't know.
I don't know, but I want them both to lead the ship.
Okay, all right. You can call me Cap.
Okay, Cap, and I'll just be the pilot. Another thing that's going to be changing moving forward is that there will not be written articles. That was something that I started at the very beginning. I wanted to produce the show in all three mediums, audio, video, and written, because I didn't want the information to miss somebody just because they don't like to listen or watch. That said, producing the written articles takes up a lot of my time and energy, and I wasn't seeing the same return from it as I was from the audio and video mediums. So I'm still going to provide pretty detailed show notes, links to anything that we mention in terms of, references or resources or products, that sort of thing, but it will not be a standalone article anymore.
We're also going to be launching a new Patreon, and one of the ideas that we have for what we're going to include there is some longer conversations, both with guests and between Holly and I. If you've listened to the episodes where I've been a guest, you know that they're probably among her longer episodes.
They are the longest episodes I've ever produced, I'm pretty sure.
we get on a roll in conversation, and it just goes, which I love. And some of you might love, but for what we want to produce and publish week by week, we want to try to keep that a little bit more concise, try to keep it a little bit more compact and digestible. But if you're interested in more, we're hoping to include some of those on the Patreon and potentially more. That will evolve as we go.
Yeah, so if you have an idea of something you want us to dive deeper into that might not make an entire episode, of course, let us know. If you have questions about the things that we bring up, let us know. That is a good place for us to answer them for you if they don't make it into a public episode. We will provide a link for that Patreon group in the show notes of this episode and all episodes moving forward, so you can come join us there. And another way we're going to change things in the episode, in the show, in case you haven't caught on already, we really want you to be involved. We want our audience to participate in the show. So one thing that we're going to do moving forward with these topical episodes about how people are deliberately living whatever the heck lifestyle they're living, we want to get audience responses on some of these topics. We're going to pose specific questions or general broad questions, and we want you guys to give us feedback and answers and tell us how you're living deliberately. We would prefer for these to be an audio recording or especially a video recording. And I will include instructions on how to submit those to us as soon as we start accepting them. But we really want this to be an interactive thing. Help us build the show and help share other ways that you are living deliberately according to whatever topic we're covering. So be sure to follow us, both of us, on Instagram and everywhere else.
I am especially excited for this part of it. I'm excited to see how it expands and shifts the conversation, and see what type of topics that we might talk about on the show that later we find that because of feedback from all of you, we have enough to now revisit it and talk through it with new perspectives, and potentially even inviting some of you from that feedback to be guests and talk through these ideas with you. I think it's going to be really exciting to expand the community and just open up more dialogue.
Yeah, absolutely. This is something that I have been wanting to incorporate into the show for months now, and I just haven't had the bandwidth to figure out how to do it. And so after, these last few weeks of taking a break and figuring out how to move forward, and then also having help with the show now, thank you, Beers, we are going to figure out how to make this a thing. And as soon as we start doing that, I will tell you how we're going to make it a thing, but I don't know how to do that yet. But we're going to figure it out. So
we'll get there.
Stay tuned.
We'll get there.
Stay tuned for those opportunities. And so for the next few weeks, we are going to basically restart the podcast by diving deeper into my very first podcast episode, 84 friggin' episodes ago, all about this concept that I developed called the 4 types of freedom. And if you haven't listened to that episode, recommend you do. Essentially what it is that I have found in my work with my clients, doing content, doing coaching, all in the last 30 plus years of my life, I've kind of figured out that there seem to be 4 major ways people are motivated in life, 4 major types of freedom that different people are looking for depending on your personality, your lifestyle, your responsibilities, your goals, etc. And those 4 types of freedom are the freedom of time, the freedom of location, the freedom of creativity, and the freedom of finances. And so my first episode was 20 or 30 minutes where I talk about all 4 of those in a brief way. And what we're going to do is break them down and make an episode for each so that we can really dive into what that type of freedom means as a whole, what it means for me, what it means for Beers, what it might mean for you, and how you can pursue that type of freedom moving forward if that's your current goal. You have anything to add?
I'm really, really looking forward to these conversations. I actually remember explicitly where I was. I was in a grocery store parking lot near the hostel in the Florist, Treehouse Hostel in South Georgia, and was sat in the car continuing to listen to this episode and was just fascinated by how much thought you had put into these 4 types of freedom. And honestly, I wanted to co-host with you from that point on. I wanted to be actually having a dialogue with you about these. And I'm really, really stoked that we're going to get to have multiple episodes talking about each one of these and just see where that dialogue takes us. And it's going to be yummy.
Yay! I'm so glad. I can't believe that. This is the first I'm hearing that story. In case you guys can't tell, this isn't a fully scripted podcast. We're just going to have conversations. But I wanted to make sure that we relaunched now, before the year was over, before 2022 started, because I want to have the conversation about deliberate living and focusing on your type of freedom so that, if you guys are the kind of people who like to, revamp your whole year when the calendar year flips again, if you want to do New Year's resolutions or anything like that, now is a good time to figure that out. And, just start considering all of these pieces of information. So hopefully what we talk about today and over the next few weeks and months and who knows, maybe even years, can help you guys live a more deliberate lifestyle and find your own form of freedom. So I want to take this opportunity, as usual, to thank everybody who is here still, or again, or for the very first time for tuning in to Deliberate Living. I really want to thank Nathan Beers for agreeing to be my co-host, for putting the option out there. It wouldn't have occurred to me to bring somebody else into the show, so I'm really grateful for you for putting yourself out there and suggesting it. And I can't wait to see what we make of this thing.
Thank you as well for your enthusiasm about the idea. I'm so glad that it was alive for us both.
Yeah, absolutely. And so go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already. Subscribe via whatever podcasting app you are listening to right now, or on YouTube. And come follow us both on Instagram. That's where we're going to be sharing more information about the episodes as they're published, but also about those opportunities to participate in the episodes yourself by giving us video and audio recorded answers to the questions that we're going to ask you. And we will have the Patreon linked as well if you want to get more deep dives, added episodes, like bonus content specifically around the podcast. I also have my own Patreon if you're curious about my background, my lifestyle, specifically my art is mostly what my Patreon is focused on right now. Beers, where can they find you?
Well, first off, I want to just mention that I have some of your art up in my kitchen here, so it's definitely go and take a look at her personal Patreon. On Instagram is the best place to find me. It's really the only active place I maintain an online presence, but it's the.nomadic.beers, and that's just like the drink, plural, BEERS.
Excellent. And so we're going to wrap up this re-intro here, but tune in next week. We're going to start off with the freedom of time, and then we will gradually move on into location, creativity, and finances after that. But thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you, Beers. And tune in next week for another excellent episode. Bye.
Talk to you then.